Let's kick off this explainer. If you've ever planted a tray of seeds, excitedly watched them pop up, and then absolutely nothing happens. They just freeze. Well, congratulations, you have officially met the single most frustrating mystery in the gardening world. But don't worry, today we're going to put on our doctor coats, treat your garden exactly like a medical patient, and figure out exactly what's going wrong.
We're going to work through this just like a proper medical workup. Our agenda today: 1. The diagnosis. 2. The symptoms. 3. The triage. 4. Long-term rehab. And finally, 5. The golden ratio.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the diagnosis. Why are seedlings stunted?
It's incredibly frustrating, right? You've planted the seeds, you've provided perfect water and light, but the plants are just completely frozen in time. They aren't dying, but they sure aren't growing either. And naturally, our instinct as helicopter parents to our plants kicks in. We immediately think, oh no, my babies are starving, I need to feed them right now. But actually, scratch that. That exact instinct is usually what causes the real damage.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. We are literally trying to feed plants before their tiny systems can actually digest the nutrients. You would never ever force a newborn infant to eat a heavy, complex meal, right? Their little digestive systems just aren't ready for it. Well, seedlings operate on the exact same principle. What's really amazing here is that in these early days, nature has already packed all the baby food a plant needs right inside the seed itself. In those first few weeks, all those tiny little sprouts actually require is a bit of moisture, some warmth, and light. That's the whole shebang. Giving them heavy chemical fertilizers at this stage is basically like pouring boiling water over their fragile hair-like roots. It just completely burns them out. So the absolute golden rule here is that you must wait for these true leaves to appear before you even think about applying any chemical fertilizers. When a seed first sprouts, it pushes out seed leaves, or cotyledons, and they usually just look like simple little round paddles. But the next set of leaves that grow, those will actually look like the specific plant you're trying to grow, like a tiny pepper leaf or a little tomato leaf. That right there is your green light. That tells you the plant's internal digestive machinery has finally turned on.
If you jump the gun and don't wait for those true leaves, you're almost definitely going to commit one of 3 fatal errors. Number 1, feeding at the wrong time, before true leaves appear. Number 2, applying the wrong dose, which causes a massive systemic shock. Or number 3, completely ignoring the soil environment like pH levels and compaction. Seriously, remember this for young plants. It is always, always better to underfeed than to overfeed.
Now you might be wondering about root stimulants. Can we at least give the roots a little push? Well, the science says yes, but with a big caveat. You need to wait 5 to 7 days after planting before applying any gentle humic acids. This avoids shocking the incredibly delicate new roots, while still helping to loosen up the soil and encouraging those root hairs to stretch out safely. Moving right along to section 2, the symptoms, burn versus shock. It is absolutely vital to distinguish between a superficial leaf burn and a systemic, life-threatening fertilizer shock at the root level. Leaf burn usually just happens when fertilizer physically splashes on the leaves on a hot day. The tips get all crispy and curl up. But fertilizer shock, that is a total internal crisis. If you see your plant wilting, drooping, and looking completely dehydrated, even though the soil feels soaking wet, you've got a major problem. If you dig up a tiny bit of the soil and see that the roots have turned dark brown or black, that plant is in severe shock from toxic salt buildup.
Which brings us to section 3, the triage, plant first aid.
Okay, let's run through the emergency protocols if you discover your plant is suffering from that severe shock. First, stop fertilizing immediately. Hard stop. Second, you want to heavily flush the soil with clean water to wash away and dilute that toxic salt buildup. If your plant is in a pot, let that water run completely through the drainage holes. Third, apply a plant-specific vitamin B1 or B12 treatment. Just like we might use vitamins to bounce back from stress, this actively rehabilitates the plant's stress system and helps it recover.
And please, you have got to exercise patience here. Only when you dig down and see fresh, bright, white root tips, which usually takes about 5 to 7 days after your flush, is it truly safe to introduce mild, diluted nutrients again. Those white tips are literally the plant telling you it's finally ready to eat again.
All right, once the patient is stabilized, we move to section 4, long-term rehab, healing soil and pH.
I love this concept. Think of soil pH as a literal key. If your soil is way too acidic or way too alkaline, the door to the nutrients is completely locked tight.
Your plant will literally starve to death surrounded by food, no matter how much fertilizer you dump into that pot. Different plants do like slightly different pH levels, but if it is wildly out of balance, the roots physically cannot absorb anything.
So how do we fix it? If you diagnose that your soil pH is way too low, meaning it's highly acidic, you can successfully treat and unlock it by incorporating lime and phosphorus directly into the soil bed. This bumps up the pH, neutralizes the heavy metals, and throws the doors wide open for your plant's roots to start feeding.
To really supercharge this soil rehab, you should definitely inoculate it with trichoderma fungi. This stuff acts like an army of microscopic guards. They literally build a protective shield around the plant's roots, defending them against harmful diseases. Plus, they actively break down the raw organic matter in the soil, pre-digesting it into easy-to-absorb nutrients for your little seedlings. It's a total game changer.
Now let's tie this all together in Section 5, the golden ratio, sustainable prevention.
When it comes to shifting from emergency medicine to long-term health, the science points to a clear winner, the 70-30 rule. A sustainable regimen means using 70% organic matter, like compost or worm castings, because that builds your incredible soil structure, keeps it porous, and sustains all that crucial microbial life. The remaining 30% can be inorganic or chemical fertilizers, which give you that rapid, targeted growth boost right when the plant needs it most. Relying on 100% chemical fertilizer is exactly what burns out your soil and stunts your seedlings. It is all about balance.
So as you head back out to your garden today, I want you to ask yourself this one vital question to make sure you never have to face stunted seedlings again. Are you just feeding your plants, or are you actually going to start feeding your soil? Because remember, healthy soil creates healthy roots, and healthy roots grow incredible plants. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.